No, before we even crack open the Silverstone FLP-01, I have a question here. Why does my parts pile have an optical drive in it? No, don't answer that. Let's get this case open and find out exactly what it is we're dealing with, because, complete transparency, I've done zero prep. Oh, retrofitted HTPC chassis. I remember this thing. Or rather, I remember seeing this thing and going, I remember computers that looked like that. You know why we call them desktop PCs? Because they used to go like that, on top of the desk. Now I know what you're thinking. Why would I spend brand new money on an old case when I could just fish one of those out of the dumpster? But it's not an old case. It just has a vintage aesthetic. It's packed with modern features. This side can take up to, I think, 2 120mm fans. This side can take another 120mm fan and has a nice big intake for your power supply. And at the front, that is no optical drive. It's a space station. Sorry, no. It's front I/O, front USB 3, and USB-C, and what appears to be a headphone microphone combo jack. This one seems to be an actual optical bay, which I guess explains this. What it doesn't explain is this. Can this case possibly handle the heat output of a 600-watt GPU? Well, don't look at me, I don't know, I haven't built it yet. Just one included fan, which blows over what appears to be a nicely vibration-dampened hard drive mount, and a pretty bare-bones accessory package. But what are we looking at for pricing of this thing? I'm gonna guess $139.99.
$129.99.
All right. If you're willing to pay a premium for the aesthetic, it's not outlandish, but it is far from the best value that you're going to get for a case. Odd configuration of standoffs pre-installed. They went with these 6, which would only correspond to some of those weirder narrow ATX boards that don't go the full width. So it doesn't really comply with any of the standards. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to cause any damage or anything. It's just weird. It's also weird that we haven't talked yet about our sponsor.
Thanks to Secretlab for sponsoring this short circuit. All work and no play makes me, Elijah, a very sad boy. And thankfully with Secretlab's Titan Evo gaming chair, you can do both in style and comfort. It features a host of customization and adjustment options to keep your posture in ergonomically correct positions, and the flexibility to add a bit of flair to your setup, like with swappable armrests and custom seat covers. So head on over to lmg.gg/secretlabsc so you guys can grab one today.
Now, obviously our main focus is the case today, but there are some parts that we need to talk about, in particular the cooler. Because these desktop style cases tend to be a little bit on the skinnier side compared to a tower. You can really see that, right? 80mm fans here instead of typically a 120 or even a 140. Your cooler selection may be somewhat limited. So we're using an NHL12S X77, but it is worth noting that if we wanted to, we could have gone a little bit higher profile. We just wouldn't be able to put a big giant tower cooler on this thing. So let me show you guys what our clearance looks like. A little something like that. You can see once we put a full thickness fan on there, we don't actually have a ton of extra space left over. Wasn't planning to talk about this. I was just gonna wire everything up off camera, but this might be the tightest USB 3 connector that I have ever seen. I thought one of the pins was misaligned and I was mashing it or something, but look at this. Like that, it's just that tight. It's a 2-hand job. Okay, here's another one. Why are my front panel connector cables different lengths? Like, they're gonna go to the same place, you guys. What are you doing here? You gotta loop it and cable manage it like that. To be clear, I know these are nitpicky details, but what you guys gotta remember is, that's my job. I gotta say, the cable management in this case, functionally non-existent. But, to their credit, it started as an April Fool's joke, so maybe my expectations are just too high? Is that true? So many people were amped about it that they just went ahead and made the damn thing. Okay, sure, why not? PC gaming community, stay incredible. Andrew, the camera guy's like, hey, you got it leaned up like that. I just noticed the feet are different on the front and the back. What the heck? Was that really a cost-saving measure that mattered? So you can see the pretty feet from the front, right? In the product photography. And they got the cheap, just like rubber stickers at the back. I cut myself for this build, Silverstone. Not on your case, mind you, on the cooler, but still. If I'm gonna blood sacrifice to build a computer, I want it to be a good one. Oh, another cost-saving measure. It doesn't come with fan screws. Normally your fans will come with screws, but I've also seen many cases where the case comes with fan screws, and this is not one of them. Now I gotta figure out what we wanna do fan configuration-wise. We wanna bring fresh air to our GPU, but the spot where we have two big intakes is up here, which would actually work against the flow configuration of the 5090. So I guess we're stuck with just this one.
Are you gonna throw in an optical drive?
Oh, I cannot. Because we have a higher profile cooler, that precludes the use of an optical drive, though we could still mount some, shallower 5 1/4 inch accessory. Alternatively, with this cooler in the low profile configuration with the stock fan, where it's mounted under the fin stack, that could work, but would restrict cooling a little bit. Good question. All right, I think I'm gonna take out the fan that was already in here. That was configured to bring fresh air over the CPU area. Push what? Well, these are easy. It's a bad sign. Usually means I'm getting frustrated. Oh. Whoa, that's tight. There's a cable management loop on there that may be the difference between this sliding in or not. Oh, they've got an extra little PCI bracket up at the top that I guess you could use to mount like a little fan control module or some random accessory that doesn't actually need to plug into the motherboard, but it covers up all the screws for the PCI brackets. Now would be a perfect time to leak a new product. It didn't escape our notice that some cases and coolers have a pass-through that is a little bit too narrow to accommodate an interchangeable bit screwdriver. So we have been beavering away, as Canadians are apt to do, on this, the long shank screwdriver set. It's not done yet, these bits aren't final, etc., but it will allow you to do this. Ha-ha! With that out of the way, let's see if we can get this GPU in here, all right? Wow. Wow, that is some borderline fittage. We're not out of the woods yet. Just because the card fits doesn't mean the power cable fits. Thankfully, NVIDIA angled the connector on the 5090, but that doesn't mean that this is a guarantee. Oh, dude. Angled connector for the win. This cable comb might not fit, but the cable itself looks like it will. Which doesn't mean that we're good to go. I also have to get some bulky cables from the bottom of the case up to the top, past this enormous GPU. Hey, there we go. Look at that. She just barely fits. Okay, we got two options for the CPU connectors. We can either go around like this, or, hear me out, we go here. I mean, there's no back, right? There's no behind the motherboard tray. That's the bottom of the case, so we put a hole here. We go under the case. No, we're not doing that. Well, that's not a bad looking little build. I mean, the cable management is trash, but watch this, I can fix it. Ta-da! That's how we used to do it. That might help draw some extra air in for the GPU. That gives me, I was gonna say hope, but it doesn't. Let's test it. Now to see the ergonomics. That's more like it. I still can't believe this is a real product. Leave your comment now if you think the 5090 is going to thermal throttle. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here's the results from labs. I am either surprised or not surprised, depending on the outcome. There's no way this thing didn't thermal throttle. No shot. I'm not surprised. If you guys enjoyed this video, I don't know, subscribe to ShortCircuit or whatever.